Hey everybody, and welcome to my first of two videos on this little guy, the Pentax MG, one of Pentax's M series bodies and an automatic wonder. It is a fun little camera to use, and what we'll do is we'll go through this first video. We'll talk about the different interface elements and what they do, about the layout and all the functions on it. I'll share some photos and thoughts I have about this camera, photos I've taken with this camera. And in the second video, we're going to talk about all the different buttons and what they do and how you can use this camera to improve your photography. So stick around. This is an interchangeable lens, single lens reflex camera, and what that means is that the lens here can be taken on and off of the camera and different lens put on for different effects. This has a center weighted meter, which means that the light data coming in through the center of the image is weighted more heavily for meter readings than what's on the peripheries of the image. The shutter will run from 1 second to 1/1000th, and also has a B mode and a mechanical 1/100th mode for flash syncs. It has a viewfinder magnification through the back here of 87%, or 0.87 times, meaning that what you see in the viewfinder is 87% of the size of what will actually be on the film. And it has a viewfinder frame coverage of 92%, meaning that if what you're looking at right now were the final image, then what you would see in the viewfinder would lose about 4% on the top and bottom and each side. And that's just fine because it gives you a few cropping options when you get your images back. The focusing screen in the camera is fixed and not interchangeable, and is a split prism focusing screen, and the flash on this camera syncs at 1/100th of a second. The Pentax MG was designed for entry-level and casual camera users. It is fully automatic except for the single manual setting of 1/100th of a second. It improves upon the ME and MV because it displays shutter speeds in the viewfinder, and it's therefore a better camera than either of those, and a step up. However, the viewfinder is tiny compared to more advanced cameras, and the image on the inside is fairly small and sometimes hard to focus on. One disadvantage to this camera is that it has no flash PC ports, only a hot shoe, so if your hot shoe fails, then there's no ability to use a flash on this camera at all. Also, lower end cameras tend to only have a hot shoe and don't have a PC port. In general, that's not a hard and fast rule, because PC ports allow you to use a flash with a cable and give you more options for lighting than just having a hot shoe. The Pentax MG was built by the Asahi Optical Company in Japan from 1981 until 1984. It was preceded directly by the MV and MV1, and this improved upon those. It was made concurrently with the ME Super and MX, and it was followed by possibly nothing directly, although the next line of the A cameras, the A3 seems fairly comparable to this. But I'm not familiar enough with the A series to know for sure if it would have been a good descendant of this camera. So if you have your Pentax MG, let's take a look at the different features and talk about what they are. Here on the top, starting with these are the camera strap lugs. And this is where you would attach your camera strap. This is the film speed selector dial right here, and what you do is you lift it up and rotate it to select the film speed that you're going to use. Here's the film rewind knob, and the film rewind lever pops out of it, and these are used to rewind the film as well as open the back of the camera. Underneath these we have the film compensation memo, And so let's take a look, and you can see right under there, there's that spinning thing. And what this lets you do is set a reminder about what your actual film speed is. And right now you can see that there's a little mark set to 1/100th. And then if I want to compensate over, I would set the ASA to 32. And if I want to compensate under, then I could set it up to 400 to achieve different photographic results. And I'll tell you, the biggest flaw in this camera for me is the location of this dial, because it would be all too easy to say, oh, I need to see that dial, and oh shoot, I just ruined an entire roll of film. So I honestly strongly recommend not using that dial to help you adjust for exposures. But that said, the only way you can adjust this camera's exposure setting to do things like bracket or achieve specific under or over exposure effects or compensate for double exposures, for instance, would be by adjusting the ISO. Next to this ring, we have a little triangle above the letters ASA. ASA and ISO are the same thing, American Standards Association or International Standards Organization, and they come up with the maths that help determine film speed. And so that little triangle there, the orange triangle, points to your selected film speed. Here we have the flash hot shoe with X sync, and X is xenon. It is any modern electronic flash will work in this camera. Here we have your shutter mode selector dial, auto, your mechanical and flash sync setting of 1/100th of a second, and bulb. And bulb means that as long as you hold the button down, the shutter will remain open. This is the film advance lever. It moves the film to the next frame as well as rearming the shutter. Underneath the bulb, you'll see a little circle there, and you'll notice right now that it's orange, and now it's black. When it's orange, it tells you that if you push the shutter button, an image will be taken. When it's black, it says if you push the shutter button, nothing's going to happen. And you can see after rearming the shutter, it's orange again. Here is the frame count window, and that tells you how many exposures you've used on your roll of film. So here is the front of the camera, and this right here is the self-timer dial. And to arm it, you simply rotate it 90 degrees, and then to start it, you simply tap it, and when it finishes the self-timer action, it will take a picture. There we go. And you actually shouldn't advance the film until it has made a little tick noise at the end and stopped moving, because if you advance the film too soon, you'll simply waste a frame. This is the lens mount index. This is what helps you line up the lens for mounting. Here is the lens release, and you push this button to remove the lens. You can probably see there's a little locking pin there that retracts into the body when you push it down, and that locks the lens onto the camera. And then that's it for the front of the camera. Here on the camera's back, we have not a whole lot. We have the film back, and we have the viewfinder here. And the viewfinder, you can probably see, has some accessory grooves on it that allow you to put different accessories over the viewfinder, things like a right angle finder or a viewfinder shade when you take long exposure images. And that contact, I believe, is for the data back. But I could not figure out, maybe I just missed it in the manual, but I couldn't find out exactly what it is that does. Here on the bottom, we have a few more things. This is the power winder electrical contact, and that allows the power winder to communicate with the camera. Here's your battery chamber cover, and this is where you would put the battery. Here's your tripod bushing, your Asahi Optical Company Japan stamp to indicate who made it and where. Here's the serial number. This is the film rewind button that you would push to rewind your film. And here's the mechanical contact for the film winder that allows the film winder, which is a little battery pack with a motor, to advance the film or rewind it. No, just advance it, I'm sorry. The film rewinder will only advance the film in this camera. So some notes on this camera. The shutter requires a battery to operate. Unless you're in the mechanical mode of 1/100th of a second, then you can use the shutter without a battery. This is a very stripped down camera body. It lacks a lot of the features and functions that many camera bodies have. And that's one of the ways you can tell that it's for an entry-level market, is that it does not have the bells and whistles that more advanced cameras have. The MG is a fun camera to use. My copy is the quietest of the M series bodies that I've used. It's light, takes nice photos, and it has a good interface. The MG is, in the most important ways, just another Pentax M series camera. It's not superb, but it's certainly not terrible. And the MG feels like the cameras from which it's descended, the ME and the MV. And in general, that's a good thing. Where the MG falls apart, for me, is the same place where the ME and the MV and the Nikon EM and the Canon T50 fall apart. They don't allow the photographer creative control in most situations. But the MG and the others I named serve a different purpose than a camera which always insists on the photographer having creative control. Cameras like the MG helped to bridge the gap between point and shoot and SLR bodies for casual photographers. This market today, it's occupied by your cell phone. MG allowed photographers who weren't great at the technical details of exposure and metering to take reasonably competent images supported by a system with a number of exceptional lenses. I did like my MG a good deal for what it was. I took it out on a number of bike rides because it was light, pretty rugged, and packed well. But ultimately, it's not one of those special or great cameras. It's just the entry-level M body that Pentax ran with until they ended the M lineup. If you're looking for an M body, the MG will be fine and it will work well. That said, there's no reason to get it instead of an ME Super with the Super's manual mode, override, and controls, or an MX with its all-manual operation. But if you're looking for a camera that you can just pick up, focus, and take a pretty good photo with, the MG is a good choice for that. It won't let you down. The meter is great, the response is great, it's quiet, it's easy to use. In terms of cameras for shooting without worry, the MG is a fantastic option. So let's talk about a few things not to do with this camera. First thing is, do not touch the shutter. When we get inside the camera, you'll see the shutter. Don't touch it. Don't put your finger in it and let the camera close on your finger. It's a really good way to brick your camera. Inside the shutter housing, you saw a mirror. Don't touch the mirror. It's surface-coated silver, and the oils from your finger will tarnish the mirror and make it harder to focus the image that you want to take. Don't leave your camera or your lenses in your car, because the heat will cause the oils in them that keep everything lubricated to get very thin and get to places that they're not supposed to be. And then when they re-thicken, they will cause things to operate incorrectly. And likewise, if it's too cold, then the oils will break down and they will not operate properly and become gummy. Don't store your camera in a plastic bag or in a plastic box. if you do, you risk moisture getting in there, and moisture will get inside of a plastic container. And once you have moisture inside of a plastic container, you'll get mildew and mold on the camera leather, which smells awful. And then you can also get fungus growing on the actual camera lens glass, which will basically it makes the lens very soft, and it can damage the coatings which make the lens perform well. So having fungus on your lens basically ruins it if you have enough. Do not let your camera get wet. It's not a weather sealed camera, and it does have electronics, so if it gets wet you risk it shorting out. Just remember that your camera is a precision tool and should be handled with care and respect. And if you take care of your camera will take care of you. So this has been the first video on the Pentax MG. If this video is helpful, please leave me a thumbs up. That lets me know I'm on the right track. If you'd like to subscribe, you can do that with the subscribe button, and then you'll find out when I have more photography and camera related videos that I release. If you have comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section below, and I'm more than happy to respond to those, and I try to get back to them pretty quickly. If you are an amateur photographer who has taken pictures with a Pentax MG, feel free to share a link to your photos in the comments section. And one last thing, thank you guys for watching, and take great photos. Hey everybody, and welcome to what is a Hey everybody, and welcome to what is a very exciting video for me to do. For 45 minutes I've been outside taking photos for the splash screens for everything I'm videotaping this week, and couldn't have taken a drink of water in that time, apparently.